Hello, welcome to Non-Dual Christianity. In this video, we'll talk about Jesus, Savior of the world, which is a very popular phrase this time of year in the Christmas holiday season. If we look at the Bible, there's actually many different places where this idea that Jesus and Savior is mentioned. I'll just read two passages which come from the birth of Jesus Christ. The first one in Matthew 1:21 says, "She will bear a son, and you shall call his name Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins." And then the second one is in Luke 2, verse 11, "For today in the city of David there has been born for you a Savior, who is Christ the Lord." So what I want to do is I just want to have us pause and kind of get a better idea of what you yourself actually mean when you say or hear that phrase. And I want to contrast it a little bit with how the Jews in the gospel seem to have understood that phrase and draw a couple of parallels that maybe aren't quite as obvious. So the first one is this. What do we mean by Savior? Well, depending on what you start with as the problem, right? What's wrong with the world? Is there something wrong with the world? That is going to be what you mean by the saving. So for the Jews, at the point in the Gospels, they were an oppressed people ruled by the Roman Empire. And they very clearly thought that this sent one, this Messiah, this Christ from God, was going to be a political liberator for them. It is just through and through that it was assumed and expected Jesus was going to be a ruler in the political sense. So much so that almost everyone missed the true significance of what he was doing. And what's interesting to me is if you have any sense of being oppressed, that the world is oppressing you, Satan, sin, something where there's this anti-God type of rule, right? And if you are waiting for this liberation from that, that is very similar to what the Jews were thinking. It's a layer down, it's a spiritual layer or an emotional layer, but it's still this fundamental assumption or belief that there is this anti-God oppression that's taking place. And it could be very confusing if God is not dealing with that, just as it was very confusing for the Jews who were waiting for political liberation. And I just challenge you to reflect at perhaps what Jesus means when he's talking about the kingdom of heaven being within you is even deeper than the liberation that you are expecting, just like it was deeper than the Jews were expecting. And it is more along the lines of something which is already true. You are already liberated in your being. You are already what you most hope to be and to have. And it's simply a matter of giving up your confusion about this perceived sense of separation. The second part is this idea of Savior of the world. What do we mean by world? How big is that? And even though we say world, which would seem to encompass everything, in my experience at least, most Christians would very much divide that into an us and a them and say that Jesus came to save us, which the Jews also did. They were all about tribe, right? It was about blood, and you were either in the blood, in the tribe, or you were out. And they were so clearly thought that those who were out were not part of God's saving movement that they excluded even the Samaritans who were partially Jewish, right? So you had to have all the right things, and it was so easy to be disqualified. And don't many Christians do the same thing? Instead of mandating that there has to be a bloodline similarity, we mandate that you have to have the right beliefs. So it's no longer the right genetics, thank goodness, but now it's the right beliefs. If you don't think these same things are true that I think are true, you're out. God is not here to save you. So it becomes more of a mental tribe than a ethnic tribe, but still very tribal to its core, because our default assumption is just so deep that clearly God is not here to save everyone. Is he? So that's it. I would challenge you to just consider, ponder, what do you mean by that phrase when you hear it, when you say it? And if you would like to, please leave some comments in the section of this video in your own words. What do you mean by that? Or how do you take that when people say it to you? I would love to hear that. This video itself was actually a special request by one of you all, so feel free to request other topics as well. Thank you for exploring this with me today.